This tutorial is about creating visuals, and if I'm honest, I am not the most artistic person. What we'll be walking through is creating visuals for the purpose of presentation or research. I'll show you how I've taken data that was produced by my students taking a pre and post test, and then I graphed that data using an AI tool. The engine I'll be using today is Claude, and I bet we can probably finish this task before my coffee gets cold. So coming over to Claude, you can see when you go to enter a new chat, just like you would with pretty much any other AI tool, you'll start typing in into that search box. But I've already had this chat to make sure that everything works the way I wanted to according to plan. So we'll go back through that. First, I typed in, I want to create a graph for a document on student growth using their test scores from a pre-test and a post-test. And then it gave me some ideas of what that could potentially look like. At first, I was taken by this scatter plot. I don't know a lot about what graphics would work the best. So I said that I would start with that scatter plot with the idea of showing growth patterns. I wanted it to be a static image that I could put into a document, and then I needed to upload the data. It told me that it was going to be able to upload a CSV file. However, I found that that wasn't the case, and with some research, I saw that one of the workarounds is what it lists down there to load in a plain text file, .txt. I know nothing about this. I just saw online that someone suggested that you take your CSV file, which I downloaded from Google Sheets, and then when you save it, change the extension at the end from .csv to .txt, and that did the trick. Once it saw the data, it took some time to create a scatter plot. I will bring that back up for you. And here you'll start to see why the visual aspect of Claude, I think, is so useful. It offered me a line here for who would be no growth versus those in growth. And then as I hover over these, it gives me individual test scores, the blue dots each representing students. So you can see that all of the students very clearly within this data set demonstrated growth. However, I knew that that may not be the most visual for putting it into a static document because of the aspect of needing to hover over the dots. So coming back over here to the chat that I was having, I asked if I could see the data in a different type of chart, and that's where I landed on a bar chart. Specifically, I wanted for each student to have their own bar, and then for the pre-test to be the first bar. But then the post-test to extend beyond that, since every student showed growth, so that I could show that. To which it said it understood that as a stacked bar chart. I don't know the lingo, that's okay. And this is where it gave me another image. This image was closer aligned to what I wanted. Clearly let me show that every student demonstrated growth, but then also how much growth that was for each individual student. But it's pretty hard to read down here. So you can see, and this is one of the things I love about this, how easy it is to edit it along the way. I asked it if it could change the levels on that x-axis of the bar for the student to abbreviate it to S, so it would be S1, S2, instead of writing out the word student every time, which it was able to do quite easily. Then I started asking it some other questions like what was the average growth score of each student so I wouldn't have to calculate it, and it told me that was 30.1 points. It also pointed out who had the most growth, the overall growth, the range of growth, a few different things that you could engage with it about. So to look at what ended up happening, it told me that the best way to take this if I was trying to put in a static document was to screenshot it. So that's what I did. And then I pulled it over here and you can see the information there. And then I also pulled over the key. You could go about formatting this however you wanted to. I'm not saying it's the prettiest image, but it's going to get the job done with the research that I'm doing. And then down below, some of the analysis that I thought was particularly poignant coming out of the conversation I had. If I'm being honest, there are a million other ways to do what I just did. However, like I said, this is not a particular talent or skill set of mine. To have an AI tool take the data I give it and format that for me, make it something that has a few different options that I can customize to my liking and make work for whatever project that I'm working on. There are probably ways to make it much more visually appealing, but for the sake of working it into a research document, which is exactly what I was doing, that's going to do the trick.